I feel that people only care about things that they know and understand. So if I can take people diving and I can make them love diving, hopefully maybe that will have some sort of an impact that will make them change their personal habits that are maybe more environmentally friendly so we can help protect the ocean.
This is the Adventure Sports Podcast, where we talk to athletes, adventurers, and business owners from around the world of adventure sports. Whether you're climbing Mount Everest, starting a bike shop, or getting up off your couch to take your kids hiking for the first time, we want you to have the motivation and inspiration you need to chase that next adventure. The Adventure Sports Podcast is brought to you by Camp Crate, the leaders in fully planned self-guided backpacking adventures, as well as backpacking gear rental. You can check them out at campcrate.net. So there's this new backpacking food company called Peak Refuel. And honestly, I gave them a shot for my last backpacking trip. Y'all, it was literally the best backpacking food I've ever had in my life. I was so impressed by them that I wanted to reach out and get a deal for our listeners. So if you keep listening to the episode, I'll tell you how to save 20% off an order with them. All right, so before we get started on the show, I have a guest, Emily. Welcome.
Hi, thanks.
This is my wife, Emily. Yeah, how's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have to go back to work tomorrow, which I'm not super excited about, but, you know.
Well, I don't ever have a day off, so.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I take plenty of days off. So, it is a new year. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a week into it, but it's taken us about a week to get going again.
Yeah.
Our dog is whining in the background because it's about time for him to go to the bathroom and
have dinner. Right.
So he's whining.
He just wants to make that very clear that it's his time right now. Yeah.
Yeah. But we have a couple announcements. Mm-hmm. Well, we are expecting.
We are.
Yeah, we're going to be having a baby and a boy.
We are officially having a boy.
And yep, in mid-May. So I will do everything I can to have podcast episodes ready.
And to not have a nervous breakdown.
Right. Because that's the beginning of backpacking season, Camp Crate and all that. And the second thing is, we were talking about resolutions for the new year and not being over the top about it, but something you can achieve, something you can do that revolves around getting outside, getting out in nature more, something we know we all need. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity. To be outside, be hiking, to do something outdoors this year on often as you can, but
weekly basis.
Ideally weekly basis. Yeah. Something that, I love the mountains. Like I need them to survive. Emily, you don't feel that way?
I do not feel that way about the mountains. What? I love them. They're beautiful, but they are not my happy place.
Okay, what's your happy place?
My happy place is the ocean. So literally the exact opposite of yours, which has been interesting the last 4 years.
Yeah, to say the least. We could go somewhere. We could live somewhere where both of those are together.
Sure.
But a lot of those places are either expensive or just really far from family, which we don't want to be. Our family all lives in Florida.
We're already pretty far. It would mean going even farther and making it more challenging to get back to family, which is tough with their first grandkid on the way. Yeah,
their first grandkid and, tight-knit family.
Yeah.
They don't want to be far, and I don't blame them.
Yeah,
I don't
for
want
both
to be
of
too
us.
far. So we trying to come up with a compromise, and one of our goals this year, it's not going to happen this year, but one of our goals is kind of cheesy. And
I love that
there's
it's
other
cheesy.
people have used this, but do you want to show you what it is?
No, you do it.
Okay. We are calling it 50-50 by 2020. So one of our goals coming up that we're going to be building for this year will be splitting our time 50-50 between Colorado and Florida by the year 2020. And so with Camp Crate, I have to be out here to ship gear all over the country in the summers. But in the winters, we kind of pack up shop and don't do anything. Not many people are backpacking then. So we ideally would love to open up some new itineraries in southern states, but Florida being one of them, because so many people visit that place in the winter. And not everyone wants to go to Disney. There's a lot of cool natural landscapes and waterways and unique experiences in the Southeast, especially where it gets really tropical. It's really awesome. So we're looking to do that. And Emily, you're a teacher. We can't, split time middle of the school year like that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. But it's frowned upon for me to be gone from October through April. So
yes. So we're officially setting a goal to figure out like what that's going to look like with jobs, with housing.
Right.
But that's going to be our adventure this year and into next year is
to plan for that.
Plan for how to split our time, at least till the kids are old enough to go to school. The kid.
Yeah.
We have a good handful of years till then, but we'll see. Sure. It's probably going to be hard. I mean, it is going to be hard. It'll be challenging to figure out. But it'll be an adventure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we can do it.
And now there's people in 170 countries that are holding us accountable to that idea. So that's perfect.
Yeah. So this is more or less just us having to make a promise to all the listeners that we're going to make this happen. And we'll document it. We'll figure out, we'll let you know how it goes, how we do this. If you have questions about it.
Epically fail.
Yeah. Because a quick Google search, there's not a lot of people our age splitting their time. But
it's like a really young generation of snowbirds.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of snowbirds that are in
everyone's
their 20s.
Like retired and really well off.
Right.
And we're poor and broke and trying to figure out how to do it anyway.
Yeah, and about to turn 30.
Yeah.
So
we're a little early.
Well, you're about to turn 30. I have another year and a half.
Thank you for that. Let's also announce that publicly. That's perfect.
Go ahead and say your weight too.
Well, I'm pregnant, so it doesn't count.
Oh, yeah, that's right. All right, so yeah, some of the few no-nos.
This is why we don't do podcasts together, because we just ramble.
Well, we'd ramble, and we'd reveal a lot of crap about our marriage. I'm
not sure that this is productive.
Well, anyway, hold us accountable. We're going to be doing that soon. Not soon, but we're going to be planning on it.
The planning starts now.
Planning starts now, and wish us luck. If you got any advice, let us know. All right.
Thanks.
Yep. Hey, everyone. So that was my wife, Emily, and that is our plan for to get ready for this year. And, if you want to keep up with us, we'll be posting updates every once in a while. But for today's episode, this was a really cool interview. It started off just getting into a diving. It's with Brandi Mueller. She's a avid diver, photographer, really does a lot of really interesting trips all the time. But we talk about diving specifically for a while, and then we get into her latest project, which we'll talk about more in the episode, and it's also in the description of the episode. But anyway, enjoy. Again, remember, you can always find our previous episodes, our list of like 470 episodes on our website, adventuresportspodcast.com. Or anywhere you get podcasts. You can always call and leave a voicemail if you have a good lead on someone who could be a good guest on the show, or if you just want to call and say hello. That number to leave a voicemail is 812-MAIL-POD. And also you can support the show by becoming a patron. You can be a monthly supporter or by episode, and that starts as little as $1 a month. So, support the show. Share it with your friends. Tell people about us. Leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps a lot. Let's make 2019 the best year of the Adventure Sports Podcast yet. All right. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone. Hope you had a good week so far. Welcome to the show. Today we have an award-winning underwater photographer and writer. She's been scuba diving for 18 years. She's instructed. She's been all over the world to like 60 plus countries. She's dived in like half of those, so everywhere you can imagine. And she is Brandi Mueller. Brandi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That's quite the introduction. Thanks.
Yeah, I usually butcher it pretty bad, so I have to take a couple shots, but we got it out first time that shot. So where are you coming from today?
Well, I'm currently in Wisconsin, which is where my parents live, so I just had Thanksgiving with them. But I take off tomorrow to go to Indonesia for 6 weeks, so just here briefly before I go back to diving.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
That is awesome. Dang. So for 6 weeks, geez.
Yeah. I'm starting off, I get to host an underwater photography workshop in Lembah, which is in North Sulawesi in Indonesia at Lembah Resort. It's a fabulous place. I'm pretty excited.
That is so do you do that a lot now? Do you travel around doing those classes and teaching?
Yeah, I'm trying to teach more underwater photography. I really enjoy it. I have a yearly event in Roatan that we do, but this is the first time I'm doing Lembah.
Wow, that is incredible. So where do people come from to attend the classes?
Pretty much all over the world, actually.
That's really cool. So yeah, so we're going to talk specifically about a project that you started, and you're releasing a book about it. But why don't you tell us about, how did you get into diving? What is it that you love about it, and where did that passion start for you?
Oh, well, I love everything about it. And the passion started when I was really young. I grew up in Wisconsin, but I had relatives who lived in Florida and Hawaii. So I grew up visiting those places and knowing that there were these amazing water and beach places that you could go to. So I always wanted to go to them. And I always wanted to be a marine biologist and go underwater and things like that.
So you went with your family growing up to Florida and Hawaii, and from there, what kind of steps did you take to keep pursuing it?
I became a diver when I was 15. I was a foreign exchange student to New Zealand, and my host family were divers. So they sort of, I don't know, helped me get into it. And then I went to college in Florida and continued to dive while I was there.
So what's I'm from Florida, and I honestly I'm not a diver. I have family that do that, but I've scuba dived a lot. Not scuba, I'm sorry. I've snorkeled a lot and kayak a lot. But how's the diving in Florida?
It's excellent. I want to take you diving now. Can I teach you?
Absolutely. I mean, when you grow up somewhere, you don't necessarily like take advantage of everything around you just because it's familiar. But now that I've moved away and pursued my own passions, going back, it's like, oh my gosh, there's this whole like other world to explore right in my backyard that I never knew was there.
Yeah. Florida's got tons of stuff. They've got the freshwater like cavern systems that are really amazing, as well as great ocean diving and wrecks. And yeah, you need to do it.
I just I haven't spent very much time there since then. Well, that's pretty cool. So from Florida, you studied, I think I read marine biology at the University of Tampa, and just continued falling in love with it. How have you built your career from there? What did you do? What position did you take, or where did you go?
After I finished college, so in college, I went through and got my dive master. So I did like sort of my advanced training and became a dive master right before I graduated. And I found out about a job in the Caribbean that required me to be an instructor, and I really wanted the job. So I became an instructor. I had a couple of months, and the deal was if you become an instructor, you can have this job. So I ended up in Key Largo, taking my instructor examination and the class and everything. And my next stop was the British Virgin Islands for a summer to teach diving there. And then I kind of decided that I liked the whole boat thing. So I got a job on liveaboard dive boats.
What do you do with those boats? Do you just take people on those as well, like a tour or something?
Yeah, a lot of them do sort of week-long trips. So divers will come on the boat, they'll live on the boat. You can dive up to 5 times a day. You have all your meals on the boat. And the boat just kind of goes around to different dive sites throughout the week. So you get to sort of see a big area of diving.
That's amazing. So you'd guide these people, and I'm sure that was incredibly rewarding, watching these people come up out of the water or be there with them and see like the expressions on their face of what they just witnessed.
Yeah, it's really fun to have a job that makes other people happy. I think that's really rewarding in itself. You're not in an office all day kind of being sad. It's like even if you're having a bad day at work, when you're working on a boat, it can't be, that bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's an awesome place. The ocean, the water, it's so unknown to us. Like, that better than anyone. It is like probably like being an astronaut in a way. Just everything you do and explore is could potentially be something that's never been seen before, and it's a totally different experience than us air breathers.
Yeah, it is. It's really incredible, and it's just so amazing. The more time you spend underwater, the more things you see. And even if they are things that have been seen before, they're seen so rarely, and it's just incredible to be in this like different sort of world and among different things. It becomes obsessive very easily.
I can imagine, because there's a totally different set. I mean, I'm just talking from ignorance, so you tell me. It seems like it just separates certain senses. Like, you're not hearing things. You're not. It's almost like putting yourself in this mode, in this zone, to where you're only capable of certain movements and certain functions, and it's therapeutic in a way, I would imagine.
It is. It's very therapeutic. Yeah, it's interesting you saying that. Like, it's very much like you go sort of into something, and then, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Oh, you put on a suit, you put on a mask. It's like an astronaut. You're sort of weightless. Like, sorry, my phone just buzzed, but it's probably just incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's really amazing. And it definitely, because you can't talk, and although it is sometimes noisy down there, like the fish make noise, like you can hear sort of the grinding of teeth of parrotfish and like other sounds, but it's just very different. And it's pretty slow going most of the time as well. So you have like a lot of time to sort of just take in what's around you and like observe. And it's interesting. You're going into like someone else's world or something else's world, and to be able to see that, it's just always amazing.
So I imagine it doesn't get old for you then.
Not for me.
We talked to a lot of people that are just experts at their craft, of course, and over time their relationship with their craft changes. Not worse, it gets better. It's like the love deepens, and it definitely seems to me that this is something you're probably going to carry with you for the remainder of your life if you can.
Definitely. I feel like I start to get crabby if I haven't been underwater in a certain amount of time. It's really great to, like, it's kind of uncomfortable at first, like when you first learn. And I was very lucky because I learned so young that it's almost like I don't really remember what it felt like to not know how to dive. But I know that like you just get more and more comfortable with it, and then it's better and it's easier, and you can spend more time observing and taking things in instead of sort of worrying what's going on.
So can I ask you this? For someone that's never, is it dove or dived? What do you guys say?
Well, I think it's dived, but people say dove as well. Right, so you can get away with either.
All right. I'll do my best to not sound like an idiot. So, for someone who's never dived, it seems like there is potential, obviously, for danger with certain creatures. Have you ever had an experience that spooked you and made you maybe rethink this passion of yours, or maybe take different precautions?
Creature-wise, no. I mean, honestly, we're big and scary to marine life, just like we perceive some things to be big and scary. But we're also very loud with all the bubbles and stuff. So I know like sharks always get the bad rap, but sharks are generally very shy and swim away from us because we're these big, loud, scary things that they don't know what they are either. There are some things like you don't want to touch certain things and whatnot, but really you shouldn't touch anything underwater because you could harm it probably more likely than it harming you. But there are things that sting and stuff like that, but not very often.
Okay, so you've never had an experience where you were maybe trapped or equipment was failing and you were in a state of panic?
I'm going to say no. I mean, I have had things malfunction and whatnot, but in the training, you learn how to deal with things like that. And you start off at like a recreational level where the dives you do are fairly easy and the stuff that could go wrong is fairly minor, and you learn how to deal with that. And as you advance into like technical diving, the same thing. You do the training where you learn more of what could go wrong in these more advanced situations, and you learn how to deal with it. And in the training, you do a lot of practicing of things going wrong. So they'll like, I don't know, pretend that your tank valve burst and you have to turn it off and switch to an alternate. And you learn how to do that. And then hopefully in real life, you just follow your training and you're just fine.
And with your guiding, do you Do you often have to put out fires for people, or are people pretty good? You do a good job of preparing them.
That's a loaded question. Generally, generally people are quite good. I mean, stuff does happen, and I think most guides would agree with me that sometimes things have gone wrong and people don't even notice that things are gone wrong. So hopefully we can sort of fix the situation before it becomes a situation, and then back on the boat sort of talk about what went wrong and try to prevent it in the future. But again, diving is generally very safe, especially at the recreational level. Like the things that could go wrong, you've got sort of backups. You dive with a buddy, so if something happens, then your buddy takes care of you, or your dive guide, or whoever. So it's really it's not dangerous. I don't want to make the like. I try to stay away from the like, oh, it's dangerous perspective, and go with the like, it's easy and anyone can do it type thing. That doesn't make for very exciting stuff, though. So what do you want me to do?
No, it's fine. I just love hearing the honest truth. I wanted to break down what is it that most people fear, and what is it most people have concern for when you tell them what you do, and then what's your mindset to break down that stigma or that stereotype. And I'm just hearing from you. I figured it wasn't dangerous, but I know when I talk to people about a lot of the disciplines that we talk about on the show, they mention, oh, that sounds very dangerous. But it's like, well, when you know the people, it's a slow climb to their level of expertise, and they're smart. They don't put themselves in dangerous positions. And I send people backpacking all the time, and one of the biggest questions I have is, am I going to get eaten by a grizzly bear, or I will be attacked by a bear, which is like the last thing you ever have to worry about. And It's just sensational. And I guarantee it's very similar with you and people asking you about sharks.
Exactly.
It's probably exactly
Completely.
the same. It's like, yeah, they're out there. Yeah, they're you might see some, but God, it's like literally you're going to have a way better chance of dying driving here than you will ever get attacked by a bear. So
Definitely. Yeah. And absolutely the same thing with the sharks. And if anything, we want to see more sharks. Like I want them to get closer so I can take better photos of them. Like sometimes we bait for the sharks to come in so they get closer.
Wow. That is so crazy. Yeah. That's different than out in the woods. We don't do that with bears, but
yeah, fair enough.
Now I've been on a couple boats and we've chummed up some sharks before. That was really impressive. So when you take people, what do you want them to walk away with? What kind of, what are you looking to? Is it the empowerment? Is it the connection with nature? What's your message and mission with them, each and every person that goes with you?
Well, I feel like I have two messages. And the main one is sort of the ocean conservation. Like the oceans are in trouble. We have all sorts of environmental concerns. And I feel that people only care about things that they know and understand. So if I can take people diving and I can make them love diving, hopefully maybe that will have some sort of an impact that will make them change their personal habits that are maybe more environmentally friendly, so we can help protect the ocean and the entire Earth environment overall. Sort of my second message is that I'm really into the I'm really into the history underwater, particularly World War II wrecks and things like that. Like I really love that we can go dive something that's 75 years old that has the story behind it of war and of just this human connection, that you can go and visit this like underwater museum. I think that's really incredible. And I like to share those stories as well.
With your first mission, do you actually show people or how do you express something tangible that they can relate, saying, yeah, our oceans are at risk? Is that the airplanes that are at the bottom of the ocean? Is that evidence of maybe, I don't know, pollution in the ocean or something? Or are those two separate things for you? So
that's usually not the message I'm talking about when I show the airplanes, but that is an important and good message that in the 1940s, we did dump all of this garbage into the ocean, and not just where the airplane graveyard is, but there are World War II dump sites sort of all over the Pacific. There's one in Vanuatu that they call $1 Million Point that they just shoved all sorts of building equipment and just stuff off a pier because they were done with it. And I guess that's what you did in the 40s. And now we know better. And I'm very happy that the airplanes are underwater because they're beautiful and amazing to dive. But environmentally, that was probably not a good decision. And it's not something that we do anymore, or at least not something we're supposed to do anymore.
And yeah, you're alluding to it, and it's something we were kind of skirting around. But you did this really incredible looking project where you basically dived to see all these remains of World War II planes. Yeah, you just mentioned a little bit about it. Why don't you tell us, like, where did that idea come from, and what did that project look like, and what has it been like?
Well, so in Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands, at the end of the war, they dumped about 150 American World War II airplanes at the end of the war. They pretty much just didn't need them anymore. The war was over. They were heavy, and they would take up space to transport back to the U.S. And they pretty much just wanted to get the troops home, like it was over. So these planes, they're in perfect condition. They weren't shot down. They didn't crash there. They were literally loaded up on a barge and thrown into the water. And I happened to be living in Kwajalein Atoll. There's a U.S. Army base there, and I was working as a civilian contractor as a boat captain. So I got to go diving on them just for fun. And it sort of became like, they're so amazing to dive. I just wanted to dive like all of them. So me and my friends would go out and dive one day and then go dive another one the other day. And then we would just jump in the water and swim in one direction and see how many we could find. So I took lots of photos of them, and then it sort of came up to make a book about it.
How many planes were there?
They estimate there's about 150. I actually haven't gone through my photos and counted them all. That would be an interesting project. But they're spread over sort of a 2 square mile area. So I definitely haven't seen them all, and I don't know if anyone has seen every single one of them. But there's a lot of them I did get to see and take photos of.
So was it a thing to go see before this project, or are you kind of leading that?
No, it was definitely a thing, but the Marshall Islands is literally in the middle of the Pacific, and it's not very easy to get to. And you can't go to the Army base unless you're invited or you work there. Basically, there's no commercial dive operations. No one who doesn't have sort of business there can just show up and go and dive there. There are some private, like if you have a private boat, you could go and dive them, but then you need your own compressor for tanks and things like that. But the people who've lived and worked on Kwajalein have known about them since they were dumped in the ocean, basically. So, yeah, not a new thing, just a not often visited thing.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I mean, what does it look like when you're getting down? Does it look like they were just are they all upside down in random directions, or is it kind of nicely settled in the bottom, like they're parked there?
They're all different. There are some that are in the perfect, like, look like they could take off at any moment position. A lot of them are nose down, which are also probably my favorite to photograph. They just look really cool.
Wow, they just landed nose down. That is crazy. So they're sticking up in the air.
Yeah,
or
and then
the water. I mean, not the air.
Same thing. Yeah, and then some of them are upside down as well, so they're all kind of scattered.
So, what kind of condition are they after 75 years? They look pretty rough.
No, they're still in pretty incredible condition. Like, it's pretty amazing. And they've got coral and stuff growing on them too, but not a ton. But I mean, we see sharks and turtles, and there's fish swarming around them. So it's very surreal almost. Like, for whatever reason, shipwrecks to me seem normal underwater. Like, you kind of expect, it's a ship. It's probably eventually going to end up underwater. But the airplanes they seem so weird to be underwater.
No kidding. Yeah, it is. I actually just was looking up pictures while you're talking. This is absolutely stunning. And I was going to ask you, what kind of feelings did that evoke as you got closer to them? Was it just bizarre, like you were just saying, compared to ships?
Yeah, it's again like very surreal and bizarre, and just also very exciting. A lot of the planes are also sort of in the 100-foot range. Some are a little bit deeper, some are a little bit shallower, but there's no ability to get nitrox up there, which is like a higher O2 blend. So you're diving on air, and with air, you only have about 18 minutes before you go into deco, which as a recreational diver on a recreational profile, you don't want to do. So you pretty much only have like 20 minutes to go down and see these planes before you have to come back up again. Wow. I always had this feeling of like, I need more time and like swim faster and I want to see more. Yeah, it's very cool.
I remember on my first bike trip, we were on the Alaskan Highway, my buddy and I, and we were absolutely total idiots. We had no idea what we were doing. We ran out of food a bunch, and it really kind of scarred us because I remember crying one time thinking about key lime pie because we were so hungry, and we were so far from the next spot to get food. And it kind of scarred me, and my wife even makes fun of me now because I tend to way overpack even for day trips, and I don't really have to do that now because we buy from Peak Refuel, and they have these awesome freeze-dried meals. It's lightweight, it weighs almost nothing when there's no water in it, and it's a lot of food. It tastes awesome. So gone are the days of carrying way too much food, and hello to the days where we're only carrying Peak. If you'd like to give Peak Refuel a try, just go to their website, order some food, and at checkout, just use the code ASP20 at checkout to get 20% off. So give them a shot. So why this? Why did you want to do this specifically? What was the inspiration, I guess?
I don't know. I just find them so fascinating that I was, hoping that other people would find them fascinating as well. They're in such a remote location and it's so hard to get to that I think I want to show people just because a lot of people can't see them.
How close did you get to take some of these pictures? Were you able to see in like some of the cockpits?
Yeah, totally. You can get right up to them.
Wow.
You can touch them if you want. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but you can.
Interesting. Did you see any personal items down there, like some eyeglasses or something maybe left in one of the seats?
Not so much in these. And I think, again, just because they were sort of like packed up and thrown overboard, so there wouldn't have been any like personal stuff left. But also in Kwajalein, there's some ships and some planes that went down during the war from wartime. And you can find stuff like that on those, which is pretty incredible.
So yeah, what's one of the strangest things you've ever found while diving?
Ooh, that's a good question. Not in Kwajalein, but in Truk Lagoon, which is a couple islands over. There's a lot of Japanese World War II wrecks that were sank, and a lot of them still have light bulbs in them that are still intact. And
man,
for whatever reason, whenever I come across like an intact light bulb that's 75 years old and is in a ship that was, torpedoed and sank, it just blows my mind that the light bulb is still intact. Because I'm pretty sure I break light bulbs just getting them home from the store in a bag.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned light bulbs in particular. We interviewed a guy a few months ago, actually about a year ago now, but we replayed his episode recently where he was stranded out at sea for 75 days in a raft after his boat sank. And he said one of the things that he saw the most just bobbing around in the ocean were light bulbs. Something you think that's so fragile and so easy to break here. I'll break anything in my hands if it's breakable within a week.
Me too.
And my wife just bought a butter dish that's like porcelain. And I'm like, okay, this thing's going to break. I'm going to break this at some point. Like, it's just a given. Everything I have has to be plastic or metal. And he said that there were just light bulbs floating with things growing on them, with fish around them. Just, it was bizarre. And the fact that you mentioned light bulbs again, shows just how delicate the ocean can be on something.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that he said they float, because they do float, which is also fascinating. So like in the shipwrecks, if they're like screwed into like a holder, they'll be in place like they're supposed to be. But in other places, if they had like spare light bulbs around, they floated up to whatever the ceiling is in that place, which is also really weird to find.
No
like
way.
light bulbs
If they're
up
on
in.
like a wire hanging down, they're going to be floating on the ceiling if they didn't.
Exactly.
That is crazy. Yeah.
Super crazy.
Is there anything else like that you notice that's like, oh, this is normal down here, but for us would just be so strange to think about?
Oh, gosh, there's so much. The wrecks of truck protected them really well. They made it illegal for people to take artifacts off very early on. So we still find all sorts of things. Like sometimes you can find uniform material that's been like buried under the silt that's still, I mean, it's still like intact
Still
uniform
wow.
material. Yeah, exactly. And then once, if it gets out of the silt, then it will sort of disintegrate over time. Also books, we'll find books that you can still page through them. And of course, once you like open the book, then the pages will disintegrate sort of one by one. But it blows my mind that someone will pull up this book that's, got kanji writing on it. And it's amazing. Sort of the human stuff, like the uniform material and things like that sort of creeps me out. We find the rubber soles of shoes quite often because those have held up over the years of water.
Yeah.
And that it just kind of, I don't know, it gives me goosebumps on the back of the neck. It's like, oh, like people were here and this was a real horrible thing that happened.
I'm pretty easily creeped out. Like I can't go into haunted houses or anything. And I'm looking through some of these pictures and it looks like you've explored some ships as well. I don't know if I could do that, to be honest. I think I would be so afraid around every doorway, around every corner that something would be lurking. And I'm sure there is. I mean, fish, there's got to be some animals that have, made that home over time.
Yeah, there's definitely fish. And so you also have to picture like you're at maybe 100 feet or so and you're breathing from a tank on your back and going inside the ships, like you're going into these like pitch black areas. And
gosh, that gives me the chills.
Oh, but it's amazing.
I bet. I know. I agree. It doesn't turn me off. It's just like, what a rush,
Yeah, I think we do it for the scare adrenaline thing a little bit, maybe.
That's awesome. That is so crazy. And especially if things are tilted or tipped over, everything's just got to feel very strange. You know what I mean? If the ground is not the ground.
Yes. So one of my favorite shipwrecks is actually, it's kind of on an angle. So it's almost completely on its side, but then tilted a little bit. And it always makes me feel like I'm in a fun house because you're like swimming through it and like you can see where your bubbles go, which give you a good perspective of like what's up. But then like you're not really going up or down. You're kind of like going sideways, but up or down. And it definitely it messes with your head.
I totally believe it. That is so crazy. So with the book, what about the experience did you write about in the book?
So, first of all, I had a co-author named Alan Axelrod, and he helped a lot with the historical perspective. So I talk about sort of what it's like to dive the airplanes, and then he sort of helped me out with discussing Kwajalein during the war and sort of what was going on in the Pacific Theater, and then also what these different airplane types did in the Pacific Theater of World War II. So there's 7 different types of airplanes in the airplane graveyard, and we sort of go, it's almost chapter by chapter per airplane that talks about what that plane did and sort of what it was known for and all the specs of the airplane. And then I also sort of add I'm going to take you on a dive on this airplane in the book. I also talk about living in Kwajalein, which is a really interesting and unique place, and just sort of my time as a civilian contractor on the island. And then sort of like how I got into diving and diving throughout the years and sort of what brought me there.
Where in the world, where is that? Like Kwajalein, is that what you're saying? I've actually never even heard of that.
Yeah, nobody's heard of it. Nobody can spell it either.
Spell it for us. I'm gonna type it in right now.
It's Kwajalein.
Yep, I was just gonna start with a Q, but
we call it Kwaj for short.
Kwaj, all right, the old Kwaj. Okay, wow, it's like a J-shaped island.
Yeah, well, they say it's shaped like a boomerang because once you go there, you always keep going back.
Oh, man, is it true?
Yeah, for me it has been so far. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I can't stay away. So the U.S. Army leases some of the islands, and it's one of the world's largest lagoons. So it's a coral atoll So the islands are all very sort of low-lying, and then the inside it's not very deep. It's only at max maybe 180 or 190 feet, and then also shallower points. So up at the north end of the island is where all these airplanes were dumped. But during World War II, there's ships that were sank up in the north area and then also down in the south area. So we dived those as well, and they're also very incredible.
Interesting. So why do you think they were dumped there and not in deeper oceans, maybe outside of the atoll?
I actually don't know, but I'm thankful to whoever decided to put them in the lagoon because the ocean side drops off to several thousand feet very quickly. So if they were dumped on the ocean side, we wouldn't be able to get them unless maybe you're in a submarine.
Now, is there anything that they did dump out there that maybe there were records kept of it?
That's a good question. I've heard that there are a couple airplanes that they dumped down at the south end ocean side. Also, so there was the Bikini Atoll nuclear testing that happened a few years later. And I think that some of the ships were hauled back from Bikini to Kwajalein where they studied them, and they dumped some of those oceanside. That could be wrong information, though. Maybe shouldn't include that.
So let me ask you this. What do you think about their decision to do that? Considering the time, maybe the state of the world, and the location, do you think it was a good decision?
Oh man, I don't know. That's above my pay grade, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I know you're happy about the decision because it's a really cool opportunity, but when you zoom out from the map, it's like, wow, they are in the middle of nowhere. And, I could see the logic behind, it's a couple, it's a handful of planes. There's an endless seemingly amount of ocean out here. Why don't we just dump them? They're going to create an environment for fish and coral. But we are in an age of recycling now. Why didn't you think they were recycled for anything? Was it just too expensive at the time?
Yeah, I think it was just too expensive to bring them back to, say, the States. And the war was over, and I think it was just they wanted to get the troops home more than worry about stuff like that, perhaps. So I think it was just much easier. And they were also kind of outdated planes at that point. And we were hoping that there weren't going to be any more wars, so they weren't going to be needed anymore. So yeah. I think it was sort of out of sight, out of mind. And unfortunately, I don't really think that they thought at that point in time, we'll do this to help, improve the marine environment by making an artificial reef. But luckily, they did kind of do that. So at least there is some positive there. Also, the planes were cleaned up to some extent before they were dumped, which is the same thing that we do now with artificial wrecks. Sometimes we clean up old ships and we dump them purposely.
Remove chemicals, remove fuel or anything that would be harmful to the ocean.
Exactly. And that's a popular practice now to try to encourage marine life to grow. So I guess I don't feel like it was that bad. And also in that time, we just didn't think about things like that. So
yeah. And, we were pulverizing the earth with artillery pretty heavily during that time. So I think this was seen as not too drastic.
Even worse, just a few years later, we did all of our nuclear testing in the same sort of country of islands at Bikini Atoll. So we were not being super environmentally friendly to this location.
Wow, that is just so bizarre. So, I mean, yeah, it's just a crazy time to be in the world. So do you think you'll ever... I know it's difficult to get to. Do you think you ever see the possibility of taking people out there?
Ooh, it's so hard just because the logistics right now are not very good. But there's a couple liveaboards that go in that area, so it is possible. And I definitely, I'm sure at some point I will go back to Kwajalein. I was actually there just a couple of months ago visiting again, so I'm sure I'll go back to visit again and hopefully get to dive the planes more.
That's awesome. Do you ever sit in the cockpit?
All right, so I don't, and a lot of people do, and I feel like so you've got this big tank on and stuff, and you get into these very delicate, in my mind, sort of historically significant planes, and you're bound to break stuff up. So I get really mad when people try to sit in the planes, but it makes people really happy and they do it. So I'd prefer they didn't, but it's okay if they do, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it is trash in the ocean. And
All right, there's that.
no,
Makes for a great selfie.
Yeah, that unfortunately that's a pretty big motivator in today's world. That's one heck of a selfie. Yeah, you're pretty much not going to be beat by anybody with that one unless they're on the moon. So is there any other places like this that you know of that maybe well known, maybe not, that you just have to get to in your diving career?
Well, I just finally got to go dive Bikini Atoll, which I was mentioning earlier, where the nuclear testing was.
Yeah.
Which, so basically, we sort of set up a target of ships after World War II, and then we dropped nuclear bombs on them to see what would happen. And there's about 10 ships and submarines that are in that area, and they're a little bit deeper than the airplanes and a little bit deeper than recreational levels. So I got to go there in September for the first time, and it had been on my like hopes and dreams list for years. And it was really incredible to go out there. The USS Saratoga is out there, which is an aircraft carrier. It's 888 feet long, has all kinds of airplanes in it and around it, and it's just this massive, massive ship.
Wow. And now that's also in the atoll, so it's not too deep again.
Correct. Yeah, it's in another atoll, but still part of the Marshall Islands. So same country, but it's in Bikini Atoll. And that atoll, the seafloor is a little bit deeper. So the seafloor is, I want to say, like, most of our dives we were in like the 165 range for a good portion of the dive. Whereas back in Kwajalein, most of the dives are sort of 100 to 110 feet.
Wow, so I'm sure you're pretty thankful that they did those experiments in that atoll as well for exploration purposes.
Again, probably not good for the environment, but pretty incredible for divers many years later.
Yeah, no kidding. Do you think that they did that on purpose to be able to study like the ships underwater, or was that just total chance?
No, I don't think that they did it on purpose, but they did study a lot of the ships from the testing, and a lot of them they sort of towed back. So Kwajalein actually has one of the ships. It's called the Prince Eugen from the Bikini testing. They took it back to Kwajalein to do testing on it, and then it sprang a leak, and they were actually trying to tow it to the ocean side to dump it in deep water, and it didn't quite make it. And now it's actually one of the propellers sticks out of the water. I've got some images of that in the book as well. Another so phenomenal wreck you can dive. But the bow's at, I don't know, maybe 120 feet, but the one of the propellers, or two of the propellers, stick out of the water. So it's on a slope.
That is so cool. So what about is there anything else in other parts of the world that you know of that you want to see?
So many. I have a massive bucket list.
Wow. So that's, I mean, are they all as difficult to get to as?
Actually, no. Most of them are a lot easier to get to.
All right. So you're getting the hard ones out of the way first, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Makes everything so much easier.
Man. So, I mean, I know I just jump around a lot, and I apologize. I'll clean it up when I.
That's all right.
It. But are you the only person in your family that does this?
Well, I'm an only child for one,
okay.
And I got to teach my dad how to dive, I don't know, probably 10 or so years ago. So that was really cool.
Wow.
Very reverse parenting roles where I was taking him underwater and I'm like, oh my goodness, stay here. Don't move. Don't go very fast.
That's hilarious. So I was going to say, like being in Wisconsin, that's just a totally different world than what you're talking about in these stories and where these planes are. Is it a trip to come back home and people ask you like, what are you doing now? How's it going? What was your latest project? And you're just like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, it's actually really hard to explain. It's also like, where do you live is the most complicated question.
Right.
I don't really know where I live.
Yeah. I mean, you could say in the ocean, but you probably spend just as much time there.
I'll get really strange looks.
Yeah. I'm a mermaid. Wow. So when does the book come out?
The book comes out December 4th, but it's available for pre-order already.
Okay, perfect. And will the best place to do that be, I assume, through Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon's got it. So that's probably the best, easiest. I think it's free shipping even, maybe.
Oh, cool. Perfect. Yeah. And so, neat. So yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to picking up a copy. Will it be available in any stores or mostly through Amazon for now?
I don't know yet if it'll be in any stores.
So what's next for you as far as what's some projects that you're definitely getting ready to do beyond this?
Well, I'm lucky. I get to do some magazine work as well. So I try to get as many assignments as I can to pretty much dive anywhere and either report back on the location or a certain animal to dive with or whatever. So yeah, I try to do as much of that as possible. And I teach some underwater photography workshops. I also lead some dive trips. So if anybody wants to come dive with me, check out my website and you can come on one of my trips with me.
Cool. Yeah. Where do they go to find out more?
It's www.brandiunderwater.com and it's Brandi with an I.
Brandi with an I, underwater.com. And then, what other websites or social medias would you like to post or to plug?
Probably Instagram. Same. I'm at Brandi Underwater. It's Brandi_underwater on Instagram. Also on Facebook, Brandi Underwater.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm excited to tell your story and I'm excited to follow you from now on.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah. And is there anything else you'd like to share with people about diving or
Well, I guess if you don't dive, I highly recommend it. I think you should check it out and go and take a class. And if you do dive more and come visit me somewhere or just enjoy your dive trip.
All right. Well, thank you so much again.
Thanks so much. Have a good day.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you know somebody that would make a good guest on the show, or if you have a pretty cool story about the outdoors or adventure sports that you want to tell us, please call us and leave a voicemail at 812-MAIL-POD. That is 812-624-5763. You can also send us an email at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. Again, it is always helpful to leave us a review on iTunes. And if you'd like to be a supporter of the show, you can give $5 a month at patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. And links for all that stuff is also in the show notes. So thanks again for listening. And y'all get out there and do something so you can be on the show one day. All right, later. Don't forget, if you want to save 20% off the best backpacking food you're ever going to eat, go to peakrefuel.com and use ASP20 at checkout.